As soon as I feel a little nip in the air, I get this urge to get in the kitchen and start baking. And if I'm going to bake, let's make a beautiful, cozy crisp with blueberries and peaches and top it with a gingerbread streusel. Now this is a really easy crisp, and all you're gonna need is some fresh blueberries and fresh peaches. If you have some other fruits that you would rather use, certainly feel free to do that. It's a pretty universal recipe. Now we're gonna begin with our fresh blueberries and get these into a bowl. Then we're going to add in 5 1/2 cups of peaches. Now these are delightful and already smell so good. Now, before we add any of the other ingredients, I'm going to add in the cornstarch. Now this is the thickening agent for your filling. So I like adding this by itself first so that the liquid from the fruit can help to absorb that cornstarch. We coat as much of the fruit as possible, so as it bakes, it thickens. Now, to that, we'll add some cane sugar. This is gonna do 2 things. It'll sweeten the crisp, but it'll also help draw out the liquid from the fruit. Then we're going to add in, for brightness, some lemon juice, some good Madagascar bourbon vanilla, my favorite, and then 2 spices that are perfect for gingerbread, cinnamon and ginger. Let's get that inside, and now, again, we're folding. You wanna be very careful here so that you don't end up tearing the fruit. You wanna keep nice, big, whole, juicy pieces. So when you bite into this crisp later, you really appreciate the integrity of the fruit, the sweetness, and the wonderful spices. Oh, this smells like autumn. We've already sprayed our cast iron skillet, so there'll be no sticking. And I love baking this in cast iron because cast iron cooks so evenly. You're not gonna have hot and cold spots. You're gonna have really beautiful, even baking, as well as browning. So we'll take this and get it right into our skillet. Spread this around and get it nice and even. We'll pop this into the oven only about 10 minutes. That really is just enough time to warm that filling. And while that is baking, we're gonna make the gingerbread streusel. So as the crisp filling is baking, we're gonna make the streusel topping, and this is super easy because it's only 4 ingredients. You're going to use 3 tablespoons of cold butter cut into cubes. You're gonna use a cup of ginger snap cookies, a little supermarket shortcut, crushed up in a bowl, and then a mixture of granulated sugar and a little salt, and the salt is for balance. So what we're going to do first is take our ginger snap cookies that are already crushed, a cup of them, and get them into a larger bowl. Then I'm going to add in my sugar and my salt. So before I add the butter, I'm just gonna give this a quick stir and just incorporate all that sugar and salt. And then you're going to take your butter. Now the butter can be cold, and you're gonna work this in with your fingers. Now there are 2 big reasons for that. Number 1, I think it's easier because if you try to use a pastry cutter with those hard cookies, it's gonna be a little difficult to cut that butter in. And secondly, the heat from your fingers helps to melt the butter just ever so slightly so it works more nicely into the streusel. So we're gonna get in here and we're gonna take the butter and just keep working this into the cookie crust until some of that butter begins to soften even more and creates this wonderful streusel topping. We'll then retrieve the filling from the oven, pop this on top, get it back in the oven so all of this butter and sweet cookie mixture can melt right down into the top. So this has been in the oven and is now bubbly warm. We'll retrieve it. Oh, it smells so good. I love a fruit crisp. And now we're going to take that topping that we made earlier with the ginger snaps, the fresh butter, a little sugar, and a little salt, and we're gonna put this on, but I'm gonna leave about a 1/2 inch border around the crisp because as this streusel bakes in, it'll spread out a bit. We want to give it a little room to roam. All right, so let's take this, get this onto the top, and right away the heat from the filling is going to start to melt away on that beautiful streusel topping, full of all the autumn flavors of gingerbread, ginger snap cookies, fresh creamery butter, some extra sugar for sweetness, and a little salt for balance. And then this goes back into the oven, 350 degrees, for a final 15 minutes. When we retrieve it the final time, we'll let it cool and top it with some fresh whipped topping and a few little cookies for good measure. So our crisp has now cooled and it's time to serve it up and garnish it with some really delicious whipped topping. So let's get our plate. Got that wonderful ginger snap streusel crust topping. Beautiful fresh peaches and blueberries. This smells and looks delightful. Top it with some fresh whipped topping, a nice dollop on top, maybe 2. And then if you really want to get fancy with a lovely garnish, take your ginger snap and put it right on top. Of course, we're gonna have to take a little bite. Who am I kidding, a big bite. And try our beautiful crisp with fresh peaches and blueberries and ginger snap streusel topping. warm, beautiful autumn spices, and just the perfect dessert. This is so good.